As evening approached, the closing ceremony began in the Academy's Grand Hall. Awards were given not for individual achievement, but for the best examples of interspecies cooperation. Every team that participated received recognition for breaking down barriers and building bridges between worlds. Elder Kyung Nam, now honorary chairman of the Galactic Education Alliance, spoke to the assembled beings. 50 years ago, I believed education was about filling young minds with knowledge. Today, these remarkable students have taught me that true education is about opening hearts to possibility. The final event was a performance by the combined Academy Choir, humans, resonant ones, crystalline beings, and others creating music that had never before existed in the universe. Their harmonies rang through the crystal spires of the Academy, carrying across space to be heard on dozens of worlds. After the guests had departed, Dr. Hannah Kim returned to her office. Through her windows, she could see the Academy's grounds, where construction robots were already working on the next expansion. Applications for the exchange program had come from over 60 different species, and 3 new dormitory complexes were being built to accommodate the growing diversity. Her desk held approval forms for the latest applicants, a delegation from the time-dilated worlds where beings experienced reality at different speeds, and a group from the Quantum Collective who existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each new species would bring unique perspectives and abilities to the Academy's growing community. This is just the beginning, she whispered to herself, signing the approval documents. Outside, the 3 suns were setting, but their light continued to reflect off the Academy's crystal spires, casting rainbow patterns that danced across the stars. The Academy's communication array buzzed with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Universities, research centers, and governments all wanted to establish partnerships with Vega Prime. Human civilization was no longer isolated on the edge of galactic society. They had become teachers, leaders, and friends to beings from across the cosmos. As Hannah prepared to leave her office, she paused at a framed photograph on her desk. It showed the moment 6 months ago when human students and resonant ones had worked together to repair the crashed ship. In their faces, she could see the exact moment when the future changed forever. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new species to welcome, and new boundaries to cross. But tonight, she was content to know that humanity had found its true calling among the stars, not as conquerors or isolationists, but as the beings who could bring the galaxy together. The adventure was just beginning. The END. I learned more in those 12 hours than I did in my entire previous semester, said Minhee Park, an engineering student whose parents had been opposed to the changes. The resonant ones showed me how to use sound waves to manipulate matter at the molecular level. Do you know what that could mean for human technology? The crowd was becoming divided. Some parents looked thoughtful, even impressed by what their children were describing. Others remained stubbornly opposed, their faces set in determined resistance. Victoria Johnson realized she was losing control of the meeting. These are just children, she declared desperately. They don't understand the long-term consequences of what they're proposing. We are the adults here. We have the responsibility to protect human civilization from contamination. But her words rang hollow in the face of the students' obvious growth and excitement. Even some of the resistant parents were beginning to look uncertain. Elder Kyung Nam, who had been silent throughout the meeting, slowly stood up. At 93, he was the oldest person in the auditorium, a living link to the Academy's founding days. I have been at this Academy for over 50 years, he said, his voice quiet but carrying absolute authority. I have seen thousands of students graduate and go on to shape human civilization, but I have never seen anything like what happened during that rescue. Those young people didn't just save alien lives, they discovered something fundamental about what it means to be human. The auditorium was completely silent now. Being human isn't about staying separate from other species, Elder Kyung continued. It's about our ability to adapt, to learn, to grow beyond our limitations. What I saw in that crashed ship was the future of humanity, not weaker, but stronger, not contaminated, but elevated. The meeting was reaching its breaking point. The Academy's future hung in the balance, and everyone knew that whatever happened next would determine not just the fate of one school, but the direction of human civilization itself. This looks like a straightforward creative writing task to expand a specific part of a sci-fi story. I'll write the expanded Part 5 section with engaging content, simple English, and the specifications you've requested. The morning of the Interspecies Academic Symposium dawned with 3 suns, painting Vega Prime Academy in brilliant gold and Purple light. 6 months had passed since the rescue that changed everything, and now spacecraft of dozens of different designs filled the Academy's expanded docking bays. Sleek human vessels floated alongside organic resonant ships that hummed with musical frequencies, while geometric crystal Confederation craft sparkled like floating diamonds. Dr. Hannah Kim stood on the main observation deck, watching the incredible sight below. Students from 12 different worlds moved through the Academy's courtyards, their various forms creating a living rainbow of diversity. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others glided on energy fields, and a few moved through specially designed water-filled tubes that connected the buildings. Headmaster Kim, the opening ceremony is about to begin, announced Jiho Lee, now wearing the golden sash of student body president. At 19, he had grown confident and articulate, his experiences during the rescue having transformed him from a maintenance worker's son into a natural leader. The main auditorium had been completely redesigned to accommodate different species. The atmosphere was carefully controlled with multiple zones, some with higher oxygen for human-type beings, others filled with methane for the gas breathers, and specialized chambers with crystalline formations for the silicon-based delegates. "Welcome, beings of the galaxy," Jiho announced, his words being simultaneously translated into dozens of languages and harmonic frequencies. "Today we celebrate not our differences, but our shared desire to learn and grow together." In the audience, Victoria Johnson sat in the front row, her grandson Dae-hoon on her lap. The 6-year-old boy was wearing a small translation device that allowed him to understand the Resonant One's musical speech. He giggled with delight as young singing world delegates created playful melodies just for him. "Grandma, listen, they're singing my name," Dae-hoon whispered excitedly. Victoria smiled, remembering how terrified she had been of this moment just months ago. Now, watching her grandson's pure joy at meeting beings from across the stars, she wondered how she had ever thought this was dangerous. The first competition began in the mathematics pavilion, where students were challenged to solve complex equations that required different types of thinking. Jiho worked alongside Zephyr, a crystalline being whose transparent body pulsed with calculating light patterns. Where human logic hit dead ends, Zephyr's geometric thinking found new pathways. Where crystalline mathematics became too rigid, human creativity provided innovative solutions. "The answer is beautiful," Jiho breathed as their combined efforts revealed a mathematical truth that neither species could have discovered alone. Their success was met with harmonious applause from beings who expressed approval in dozens of different ways. In the engineering laboratory, Somin Choi led a team of 8 students representing 5 different species. Their challenge was to design atmospheric processors that could restore dead worlds to habitability. The human students contributed their understanding of mechanical systems, while the methane breathers shared their knowledge of gas giant atmospheres. The Resonant Ones provided harmonic frequencies that could accelerate chemical reactions, and the hive mind delegates offered coordination techniques that no individual mind could achieve. "Look at this," Somin called out excitedly, gesturing to their prototype. The device was unlike anything previously imagined, part machine, part living organism, part crystalline structure. It could process atmospheres at a rate thousands of times faster than any human technology. Professor Minho Park watched from the observation gallery, his eyes wet with tears of pride. "They're not just learning about other species," he whispered to Elder Kyung Nam. "They're becoming something new, something better." The athletic competitions were perhaps the most spectacular. The Academy's new gymnasium featured multiple environments: underwater sections for aquatic species, low-gravity chambers for fragile beings, and high-pressure zones for heavy world inhabitants. Human students competed alongside beings who could fly, breathe underwater, or manipulate matter with their minds. But the most amazing sight was in the collaborative events. Teams mixed different species to solve physical challenges that required all their combined abilities. Watching humans boost crystalline beings to unreachable heights, while Resonant Ones provided harmonic communication across vast distances, showed cooperation that transcended biology itself. During the lunch break, the Academy's cafeteria served foods from across the galaxy. Human students tried crystalline energy wafers that tasted like sunshine, while alien delegates sampled Earth fruits that made them sing with pleasure. Translator devices worked overtime as students shared jokes, stories, and dreams in hundreds of different languages. Victoria Johnson found herself sitting beside Dr. Yoonji Choi, watching their children play together, human kids and alien younglings. had invented a new game that combined hide and seek with harmonic frequencies and crystalline light patterns. I owe you all an apology, Victoria said quietly. I was so afraid of losing our humanity that I almost made us lose our souls instead, Doctor. Choi smiled gently. Fear makes us all do foolish things sometimes. What matters is that we learn from it.
The Resonant Ones were responding to the students' efforts with what could only be described as joy. Their crystalline bodies blazed with bright, warm colors as they realized these young humans were genuinely trying to help them. They began producing complex harmonic patterns that made the air itself seem to sing. They're creating a healing song, Soman reported, her voice filled with wonder. It's accelerating their natural recovery processes. They don't need our medical equipment. They need our friendship. Dr. Min Jae Kim shook his head in amazement. In 20 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like this they're using. Sound itself is a form of medicine, as word spread through the academy. More students arrived to help. The crash site became an impromptu laboratory where human ingenuity met alien wisdom. The Resonant Ones taught the students how to repair their ship using harmonic frequencies to reshape metal at the molecular level. In return, the students shared human technologies and helped the aliens understand their location in space. This is a disaster, Victoria Johnson declared. But her voice lacked its earlier conviction. Even she could see that something extraordinary was happening. The rescue operation continued through the night. Human students and alien visitors worked side by side, learning from each other in ways that no classroom could ever provide. When the Resonant One's rescue ship finally arrived the next morning, the young aliens were reluctant to leave. They had composed a special song for their human rescuers, a complex harmony that told the story of unexpected friendship across the stars. As their ship lifted off from the academy grounds, the crystalline beings continued their musical farewell until they disappeared into the purple sky. Elder Kyungnam stood beside Hannah, watching the departure. In 50 years of teaching, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, I've never seen our students so alive, so truly engaged with learning around them. Students were already planning follow-up communications with their new friends. They wanted to learn more about harmonic technology, crystal medicine, and the culture of the singing worlds. For the first time in the Academy's history, education had become truly galactic. The Resistance families stood in stunned silence, unable to deny what they had witnessed. Their own children had proven that humans and aliens could work together, learn from each other, and create something greater than neither species could achieve alone. The real education had begun. The news feeds across the galaxy couldn't stop talking about the rescue at Vega P. Rhyme Academy. Holographic displays in spaceports from Earth to the Outer Rim showed footage of human students working alongside the crystalline Resonant Ones, their harmonious songs echoing through the cosmos. The story had everything news outlets loved: drama, danger, and the rare sight of different species helping each other. But inside the Academy's main auditorium, the mood was anything but celebratory. Victoria Johnson stood at the podium, her face stern as she addressed the packed town hall meeting. Nearly every wealthy family had sent representatives, their expensive clothes and jewelry making them stand out from the Academy's regular staff. And students, look at what we've become, Victoria declared, gesturing to the massive holographic display behind her. Vega Prime Academy, once the most respected human institution in the galaxy, is now being treated like some kind of aliens who we are the laughingstock of civilized space. The display showed dozens of news reports from across the galaxy. Most were positive, praising the students' courage and the Academy's progressive approach to education. But Victoria had carefully selected the few critical pieces that questioned whether humans were losing their identity or becoming too soft in their dealings with alien species. This is exactly what we feared would happen, she continued, her voice growing louder. Our children are being used as guinea pigs in Dr. Kim's dangerous social experiments. She's turning our academy into a testing ground for her radical ideas about human-alien cooperation. In the audience, Ji-Holy sat beside his father, Chief Engineer Don Yunli. The older man's weathered hands gripped his son's shoulder with pride. You did something amazing out there, son, he whispered. Don't let them make you ashamed of it. Soman Choi was there too, flanked by her mother Dr. Yoonji Cho and several other faculty members who supported the new direction. They watched nervously as Victoria pulled up more evidence of the Academy's changing reputation. Since the incident, Victoria announced, we have received over 300 enrollment inquiries from non-human species. 300. They want to send their children here to learn alongside our sons and daughters. Is this what we built this institution for? The display showed application forms from across the galaxy. There were requests from the methane breathers of the gas giant collective, inquiries from the silicon-based architects of the Crystal Nebula, and formal proposals from the hive mind collective of Proxima 7. Each application represented a different species, a different way of thinking, a different approach to life itself. They want cultural exchange programs, Victoria continued, her voice dripping with disgust. They want to share our research, our technology, our secrets. They want joint athletic competitions where our children would compete against creatures with forearms, or beings that can fly, or monsters that breathe underwater. Robert White stood up from his seat in the front row. My son Taeyun tells me they're already planning something called Interspecies Academic Games. The boy is excited about competing in mathematics against beings whose brains work completely differently from ours. How is that fair? How is that human? But as the protests grew louder, something unexpected happened. A soft chime echoed through the auditorium, and the main display switched to an incoming transmission from deep space. The seal of the singing worlds appeared, a beautiful crystal formation that pulsed with harmonic frequencies. Greetings, friends of Vega Prime Academy. Came the translation of the Resonant One's musical language. We are honored to announce that your institution has been selected to receive the Crystal Harmony, the highest honor our civilization can bestow upon another species. This award recognizes extraordinary courage, compassion, and wisdom in the face of the unknown. The auditorium fell silent. The Crystal Harmony was legendary throughout the galaxy. It had only been awarded 12 times in over 1,000 years, and never to a human institution. The young humans who saved our delegation have shown us that cooperation between species is not only possible, but beautiful. The message continued. Their actions have inspired our entire civilization to reconsider our relationships with other worlds. We formally invite Vega Prime Academy to become the first human institution to join the Galactic Education Alliance. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Education Alliance included the most advanced civilizations in known space. Membership would give the Academy access to technologies and knowledge that humanity had never dreamed of. Students would graduate with skills that could take human civilization to entirely new levels. But Victoria Johnson was having none of it. This is exactly the trap we warned you about. She shouted over the excited murmurs of the crowd. They're trying to seduce us with promises of advancement. But at what cost? Our children's humanity. That's when something unexpected happened. In the middle of the packed auditorium, a young voice called out from the student section. Excuse me, but I have something to say. All eyes turned to see Taeyun White standing up. His face flushed with nervousness, but his voice steady, as the son of one of the protest leaders. He wasn't supposed to speak in favor of the changes, but something had changed in him during the rescue. The Resonant One saved my life, he said. his voice carrying clearly through the silent auditorium. During the rescue operation, I had a severe allergic reaction to the emergency food rations. The human medical team couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. But the alien delegates used their harmonic healing techniques to stabilize my condition until proper treatment could arrive. Robert White's face went pale. His son had never mentioned this part of the story. They didn't have to help me. Taeyeon continued, growing more confident. I was just some human kid they'd never met before, but when they saw I was in trouble, they didn't hesitate. They used their own energy, their own life force, to keep me alive. And you know what? Working with them was the most amazing experience of my life. Other students began standing up throughout the auditorium. One by one, they shared their own stories from the rescue, how they had learned new ways of thinking, new approaches to problem solving, new possibilities for what education could become. Natural or not, it cost us 50 million credits. Robert White shot back. And what about the incident at the spiral station? The Morrison boy called the station commander's tentacles disgusting right to his face. Now they won't let any human. Shep stock there. Victoria Johnson raised her hand for silence. The problems go deeper than individual incidents. I've been receiving reports from our business partners across the galaxy. They're starting to refuse working with our academy graduates. They say our children are arrogant, ignorant, and dangerous to deal with. The room fell silent. These families had built their fortunes on galactic trade and diplomacy. If other species stopped trusting human institutions, their entire economic empire could collapse. But surely the solution isn't to contaminate our children's education with alien influences, said a smaller voice from the back. It was Mrs. Park, whose family owned several luxury resort worlds. There must be another way. Above in the shaft, Jiho and Soman watched the security. Footage played on the displays. It showed recent incidents at various space stations and diplomatic facilities. Human graduates from prestigious academies acting with shocking ignorance and prejudice toward alien species. One video showed a young man in an expensive suit laughing at a crystalline being's natural light. Patterns, not realizing he was mocking their equivalent of poetry. Another showed a female graduate refusing to remove her shoes in a sacred methane breather temple, causing a diplomatic crisis that nearly led to war. The Galactic Education Council has sent us an ulti. Madam, Victoria continued, her voice growing darker. Either we modernize our curriculum to meet interspecies standards, or they'll revoke our accreditation. Without that accreditation, our degrees become worthless across most of known space. The families looked shocked. Their children's expensive educations were meant to guarantee success in the galactic economy. Without proper credentials, all their investments would be wasted. So what do you propose we do? Asked Robert White. Victoria's eyes grew cold. We remove Dr. Kim before she can implement these changes. We find someone more suitable to lead the academy. Someone who understands our values and won't bow to alien pressure. But the Board of Governors chose her specifically because of her diplomatic experience, objected. A younger voice, it was David Chen, whose family had recently gained wealth through technological innovations. She's the only human who has successfully negotiated peace treaties with multiple alien species. Her experience is exactly the problem. Victoria snapped. She's been contaminated by too much contact with non-humans. She's forgotten what it means to be human, to be proud of our heritage and achievements. Above them, Soman grabbed Jiho's arm. They're planning something terrible. She whispered, "We have to warn Headmaster Kim." But before they could move, alarms began blaring throughout the academy. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors as automated systems announced incoming vessels. Detected and known configuration. All students report to designated safe zones immediately. Through the boardroom's massive windows, they could see lights moving in the darkness of space. 3 ships approached the Academy, but their design was unlike anything. In human fleets, they were organic-looking, with curved surfaces that seemed to pulse with bioluminescent patterns. "What are those things?" someone gasped. Victoria Johnson's face had gone pale. "Security. Identify those vessels immediately." The Academy's defense systems came online. Powerful energy shields flickering to life around the floating complex. Automated weapon platforms emerged from hidden compartments, their targeting systems locked onto the approaching ships. But then something unexpected happened. The alien vessels began transmitting a signal, not in any human language, but in the mathematical harmonics that the Crystalline Confederation used for a peaceful first contact. Dr. Hannah Kim's voice came over the intercom system. "All defensive systems stand down. These are diplomatic vessels responding to our invitation for cultural exchange discussions. Students and faculty, please return to your quarters. There is no danger." In the boardroom, the wealthy families stared at each other in horror. The future they feared was arriving faster than they had imagined. The galaxy was coming to their academy, whether they wanted it or not. Above in the ventilation shaft, Ji-ho and So-min smiled at each other. The real adventure was just beginning. The Academy's emergency siren screamed across the floating complex as a streak of fire tore through Vega Prime's purple sky. The damaged spacecraft tumbled end over end, its hull glowing red-hot from atmospheric entry. Students pressed their faces against dormitory windows, watching in fascination and terror as the ship crashed into the Academy's outer training fields with an explosion that shook the entire street. Dr. Hannah Kim was in her office reviewing curriculum proposals when the impact threw her from her chair. Emergency lights bathed everything in crimson as her communicator crackled to life. "Headmaster, we have a situation," came the voice of Security Chief in Mupak. "Unknown vessel has crashed in Sector 7. Hull breach detected. Life signs confirmed inside. But ma'am, they're not human." Within minutes, Hannah was racing across the Academy grounds in an emergency hovercart, followed by medical teams and curious students who had ignored orders to stay in their dormitories. The crash site was a mess of twisted metal and scattered debris. The ship itself was unlike anything in human design. Its surface rippled with organic curves and strange crystalline growths that pulsed with fading light. "Stay back, everyone," shouted Dr. Min Jae Kim, the Academy's head physician. "We don't know if the atmosphere inside is toxic to humans, or if we're toxic to them." But before anyone could stop him, young Ji-ho ducked under the security barriers. The maintenance worker's son had grown up crawling through the Academy's systems, and he was small enough to squeeze through a crack in the ship's hull. "Ji-ho, no," Hannah called out. But the boy had already disappeared inside. Moments later, his voice came through the communicator, filled with wonder rather than fear. "Headmaster, you need to see this. They're beautiful." Inside the crashed vessel, Ji-ho found himself in a chamber that hummed with strange music. The walls weren't made of metal, but some kind of living material that shifted colors like oil on water. And floating in pools of shimmering liquid were 3 beings unlike anything he had ever imagined. They were roughly humanoid, but seemed to be made of crystal and light. Their bodies were translucent, revealing intricate patterns that pulsed with soft colors. Instead of mouths, they had complex structures that resonated with harmonic frequencies. When they noticed Ji-ho, they began producing sounds like a cross between singing and the ringing of crystal bells. "I think they're trying to talk to me," Ji-ho whispered into his communicator. By now, more students had gathered round the crash site. So Min Choi pushed through the crowd, carrying a portable translation device her mother had built for studying alien communication patterns. "Let me help," she called out, crawling through the hull breach to join Jiho. Outside, the emergency board meeting was in chaos. Victoria Johnson had arrived with several other wealthy parents, all demanding immediate action. These creatures could be carrying diseases, weapons, or worse. Robert White shouted at Hannah, "We cannot allow them on Academy grounds. Our children's safety comes first. They're injured and stranded." Hannah replied firmly, "Basic human decency requires us to help them. Human decency." "They're not human," Victoria Johnson's voice was, shrill with panic. "This is exactly what we warned about. First you changed the curriculum. Now you're putting alien creatures in direct contact with our children." But inside the damaged ship, something amazing was happening. Soman had activated her translation device and was slowly beginning to decode the being's harmonic language. The creatures, who called themselves the Resonant Ones from the Singing Worlds, were young diplomats traveling to a peace conference when their ship's navigation systems fail. They're scared. Soman reported through her communicator. "They don't know where they are or if help is coming, but they're trying to thank us for not attacking them." More students had joined the rescue effort, even some children from the wealthy families, despite their parents' protests, were helping to move debris and set up medical equipment. Taeyeon White, son of the mining magnate, used his knowledge of engineering to help stabilize the ship's failing life support systems. "This is madness," his father Robert White muttered, but even he couldn't deny that his son was showing remarkable courage and intelligence. Elder Kyung-nam, the Academy's most senior professor, had been teaching at Vega Prime for over 50 years. He had seen countless graduates go on to become leaders in business, politics, and exploration. But as he watched the students work together to save the alien visitors, he saw something he had never witnessed before. "Look at them," he whispered to Hannah as they stood at the edge of the crash site. "Jiho is using basic acoustic principles to match their communication frequencies. Soman is applying xenobiology concepts she learned just last week. Even young Taeyeon is using engineering skills in ways his textbooks never taught." Dr. Hannah Kim stepped out of the sleek transport shuttle, her boots clicking against the polished landing pad of Vega Prime Academy. The massive crystal spires stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning, each one pulsing with soft blue energy that powered the entire complex. 3 suns hung in the alien sky, casting strange shadows that danced across the Academy's walls. At 38, Hannah had just become the youngest headmaster in the Academy's 200-year history. More shocking to the elite families was that she was the first Korean woman to hold such power at their precious institution. The Academy floated on an artificial platform high above the swirling gas clouds of Vega Prime, accessible only by the most advanced spacecraft in human space. As she walked toward the main entrance, her personal communicator buzzed with angry messages. The wealthy donor families were not happy. The Johnsons, the Whites, the Sterlings, all families whose great-great-grandparents had built this place when humanity first conquered the Vega system. They had expected one of their own to take control, not some outsider from the frontier. Colonies, Headmaster Kim, Professor Minho Park jogged toward her, his breathing heavy from the Academy's thinner atmosphere. He was her oldest friend from their days studying xenobiology on Earth, and now he taught advanced alien communication courses. "We need to talk privately." They walked through the marble corridors lined with holographic portraits of former headmasters, all pale, all male, all from the founding families. Students in their expensive uniforms whispered as they passed, some bowing respectfully while others stared with curious eyes. "The Johnsons are furious," Minho whispered as they entered her new office. The room was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the spectacular view of 3 different space stations orbiting nearby. They pulled their eldest son Hyunwoo from advanced quantum studies yesterday, said they won't have their boy taught by someone who doesn't understand their values. Hannah sat behind the massive desk that had been carved from a single piece of Andromedan crystal. The surface showed swirling patterns that reminded her of the nebula where she had first met the crystal. Line beings, let them pull their children. There are thousands of brilliant students across the galaxy who would kill for a spot here. It's not that simple. Minho said, pacing nervously. The Academy depends on their donations. The Johnsons alone fund 30% of our research programs. Without them, we lose our advanced spacecraft simulators, our zero-gravity training facilities, and worst of all, our connection to the Galactic Education Network through the windows. Hannah watched a massive cargo ship approach the Academy's docking bay. It was carrying supplies from Earth, food, equipment, and most importantly, new students from the outer colonies. These weren't the pampered children of the elite families. These were kids who had grown up on mining stations, military outposts, and exploration vessels. They knew what the real galaxy was like. Minho, do you know why they really chose me? She asked, her voice quiet but determined. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council threatened to remove human institutions from the education network. They said our graduates were causing too many diplomatic incidents. The Sterling boy started a trade war with the methane breathers because he called their ambassador a gas bag. The white girl nearly got us banned from the spiral arm colonies because she refused to learn their greeting customs. Minho stopped pacing. I heard about those incidents, but I thought they were just rumors. They're not rumors. The Academy has been living in a bubble for too long. These wealthy families think they can buy their way through the galaxy without understanding it. But the universe is changing. Minho, every day, we discover new species, new worlds, new challenges. Our students need to be ready for that reality. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Come in. Hannah called. A young student entered, her uniform bearing the insignia of the mechanical engineering program. It was So-min Choi, daughter of Dr. Yoonji Choi, one of the galaxy's leading experts on alien technology. Unlike the wealthy students, So-min had grown up on research stations, working alongside different species since she was old enough to hold a wrench. Headmaster Kim, I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a situation in the engineering bay. The new gravity generator is acting up again, and Professor Williams says it's beyond repair. But I think I can fix it using some techniques I learned from the crystalline engineers. Hannah smiled. This was exactly what she meant, show me. As they walked toward the engineering section, Hannah's communicator buzzed again. This time it was a message from Victoria Johnson herself, the matriarch of the most powerful family. The message was short but clear. We need to talk tonight. My penthouse, come alone. The engineering bay was chaos. Sparks flew from damaged circuits while robotic assistants tried to contain the energy surges. The gravity generator, a massive sphere of exotic matter, flickered between normal and zero gravity every few seconds. Students floated helplessly. One moment, then crashed to the floor the next. It's been like this for hours, Professor Williams explained. His face red with frustration. The quantum stabilizers are completely fried. We'll need to order new parts from Earth, which will take months. But So-min was already climbing into the access tunnel with a toolkit that looked like it belonged on an alien spacecraft. The crystalline beings don't use quantum stabilizers, she called out. They use harmonic resonance to maintain gravity fields. If I can adjust the frequency generators. The generator's flickering stopped. Gravity returned to normal throughout the bay. Students cheered as they landed safely on their feet. Impossible. Williams muttered. That technique isn't in any of our textbooks. That's the problem, Hannah said, watching Soman emerge from the tunnel with a proud grin. Our textbooks are 200 years old. The galaxy has moved on, but we haven't, as evening approached. Hannah prepared for a meeting with Victoria Johnson. She knew this confrontation would determine whether her vision for the Academy would succeed or fail. Outside her window, alien spacecraft moved between the stars like fireflies, carrying students. Traders and diplomats from across the galaxy. The future was calling, but first she had to deal with the past. The emergency board meeting was called for midnight, when most students would be asleep in their dormitories, but Ji-Holy wasn't sleeping. As the son of Chief Engineer Dong Yanli, who maintained the Academy's massive fusion reactors, Ji-Ho had access to the maintenance tunnels that ran throughout the floating complex. He crawled through the narrow space above the opulent boardroom, listening to every word through the ventilation grates. Mrs. Victoria Johnson stood at the head of the polished table made from rare Centaurian wood. At 72, she still commanded respect from the other wealthy families. Her white hair was pulled back severely, and her expensive jewelry caught the light from the holographic displays showing the Academy's financial records. Friends, we have a crisis, she began, her voice echoing in the grand chamber. Dr. Kim has been headmaster for exactly 7 days, and already she's proposing changes that will destroy everything our family's built. Round the table sat the other power brokers, Robert White, whose family owned 3 space mining corporations, Jennifer Sterling, whose husband controlled the largest shipping fleet in the sector, Thomas Anderson, who had made billions developing terraforming technology. All of them had children at the Academy, and all of them expected those children to graduate with connections that would keep their families in power. What exactly are we talking about? Asked Robert White, leaning forward. In his chair, his son Taeyun was one of the Academy's top students, destined to take over the family mining empire. Victoria activated a holographic display showing curriculum proposals. She wants to add mandatory courses in alien psychology, interspecies, diplomacy, and something called galactic cultural sensitivity. She's also proposing student exchange programs with non-human institutions. The room erupted in angry voices. Jennifer Sterling slammed her hand on the table. Exchange programs. Are we supposed to send our children to live with creatures? Above them in the ventilation shaft, Ji-Ho felt his friend Soman Choi crawl up beside him. Her mother, Dr. Yoonji Choi, was the Academy's xenobiology professor, one of the few faculty members who supported the new headmaster. Soman had grown up around alien visitors and research specimens. And like the wealthy students, she wasn't afraid of different species. They're terrified, Soman whispered, her breath barely audible. My mom told me that 3 Academy graduates caused major problems in the past month alone. Through the grate, they watched Thomas Anderson pull up another holographic display. Look at this disaster from 2 weeks ago. Young Peterson Sterling, Jennifer's nephew, was sent as a junior diplomat to the Harmony Worlds. He refused to participate in their traditional greeting ceremony because he thought it was beneath human dignity. The entire trade agreement fell apart. We lost access to their rare crystal exports. Jennifer's face turned red. Peterson was standing up for human values. Those singing creatures expected him to make those ridiculous humming sounds. It's not natural for humans.